The following is a transcript between Matías De Stefano, referred to as me, and his higher self, referred to as I am, originally produced on October 5th, 2020, under the constellation of Libra, in the examining through the throat chakra in the mental week. Me. Perhaps the greatest conflict of our time is the unbalanced duality of the concept of truth and lies related to the throat chakra. Today, it has been very difficult to know what is true, which makes us constantly doubt everything we see. Before the globalization of information at the beginning of the last century, everything was classified as truth or lie. There was no doubt about it. Truth and lies were not doubted, and one lived his whole life based on the thought relative to this order. This is how ideas such as my religion is the only one and others are lies of the devil are based, or the only science is physics perceptible by the five senses and everything that comes out of it is a lie and fantasy. Both spiritual and scientific, as well as cultural and political, they are based on the permanence and structure on the concepts of what is truth and what is a lie. A very useful dual system to easily control the masses, since both words work as this kind of cattle drive. In this way, policies are created based on the Greek concept of isms, and that is movements, currents that cling to a truth, alluding that if one has the truth, the other inevitably has the lie. The media emerged as a way to solve this problem by adding a broader view, allowing people to see more than one option, amplifying their information and asking the viewer questions to make him reason outside of the isms. However, the same media, to survive in the competition, were involved in the need to show what they considered attractive, even fictional, to generate emotion and attraction and gain an audience, becoming then a part of a great machinery of lies and truths. Then the internet arrived, and social networks and smartphones and Wi-Fi, and suddenly every citizen, every individual is a journalist, a philosopher, a researcher, a scientist, a writer, a religion, a politician, a critic, an artist. Direct access not only to receive information, but to grant it, generating the opposite effect of what was expected, information overload. Due to video editing techniques, artificial intelligence, science fiction, it has been possible to turn lies into truths, to generate movements from non-existence and previously unverified things. Today, science no longer has the last word. Today, the conspiracy theories that speak of reptiles dressed as presidents or flat Earth coexist with the same level of advances in quantum physics and climate change. Everything is politicized. Everyone is idealized, taken to the extreme. The ignorance and ideas of the competition are further reinforced, not between large corporations, but between individuals around the world. Our world today ceases to be a world of connection for information, for learning, and began to be a world of disinformation, in which everything seems true and everything seems false. So how can I distinguish what is true and what is false? I am about 200,000 years of illiteracy. Me, I am. In the middle of the year 1040 of your era, the first printing press for text on rice paper were made in China, methods that would later be extended to Japan and other regions of Asia. In Europe, this idea would take about 400 more years to appear until Mr. Gutenberg made it official, replicating the Bible in 1440. Almost 400 more years would pass until education became public and the right of free access to every citizen due to the Republican ideals of the French Revolution in 1789. The great technology development would not come until the Industrial Revolution a few years later. It is at the same time that the freedom of the press was enacted in the United States starting in 1850, human rights and the abolishment of slavery began, something naturalized by humans for thousands and thousands of years. Between the First and the Second World War, movements for women's rights began to emerge, and since 1920, along with many other advances that began to connect the world, such as the independence of the last colonies and the fall of the last empires. Although the first analytical machines began to be designed in the late 1800s, it was not until 1975 that people, ordinary citizens, could begin to acquire them for personal use. Searching for a method of exchanging scientific papers for their correction online, the idea arose that made us what we call the Internet appear in 1983, that is, the interconnected network. Tell me, what year were you born? Me, in 1987. I am, only 4 years after the Internet. And when did you have Internet in your house? Me, when I turned 12, I think, around 1999. I am, only 559 years after the invention of the printing press in Europe. Visually, the history of humanity would look like the following graph. There are 200,000 years of history that represent the moment in which the culture of the Homo sapiens arises, and in which each point represents a century, 100 years. The first 2 bars are the moment that when officially history considered the invention of writing, about 3600 BC. The next bar is the birth of Christ, the year of your era. The first upper bar is around 1100, with the first advances in Asia and the Arab world. The lower bars are the years 1400 and 1500, when the printing press, the Renaissance, as well as the beginning of colonialism toward America takes place. The bars are the years 1600 and 1700. The beginning of the scientific and idealistic revolutions that lead to the social revolutions. The asterisk is 1800, where independence and republics began, the process of society and human and individual rights. The percentages is 1900, your century. The century of the world wars and the Internet, and the one that invented the greatest technological advances in the shortest amount of time. And finally, the asterisk represents 20 years of the 21st century. Now take a good look at it. Each point represents the illiteracy of humanity in general, and only the last 3 symbols show the time of literacy, connection, technology, and information. Me, I think I understand where you're going. I am. There is a somewhat pejorative phrase that perhaps it is the graphic to understand this, a monkey with a knife. Me. Yes, I understand. That is, as humans, we have been living in the same way for about 200,000 years, and only in the last 300 years, everything has changed completely. And not to mention that the last 40 years, it's almost my age. It's only 2 or 3 generations. And I remember once my great-grandmother told me, I remember when I was a child, the president was Arsayian, a name that is associated with the most ancestral past of Argentina. And there it was, my very active and unstoppable great-grandmother reminded me of her childhood. Everything went very fast. I am. So fast that you couldn't process anything. And one of the things to process is that there is no such thing as a truth and no such thing as a lie. Come again? I am. It may take you a few more centuries or millennial to assimilate it, but what you are experiencing, the age of over-information, is a natural reaction, like when they tell you drinking orange juice is very good, so you drink all morning, every noon, every night, until one day you're overloaded with sugar and you get fat and you say, in the end, orange juice wasn't that good. No, orange juice is good. The problem is that you don't know how to drink it. The same goes for information. The information must be savored, digested, processed, given time. And at the same time, there is no process time. Everything is so fast that an average human stops using the brain to identify, and all he does is look. Thus, the information passes through the emotional and not through the intellect. And it is once again a useful tool for crowd control. So what humanity is experiencing today should not last long, because its collapse will be inevitable. Me, and the notion of truth? I am. Truth and lies are only two concepts of internal order that generate security in the relationship between oneself and the environment. It is a way of feeling located in a concept, standing on the foundations of life. Identifying a truth makes us have an axis and a focus on life. However, one thing is clear. If the 8 billion humans that had the same and only truths as a concept, nothing would exist because they all would do the same thing. The interweaving of existence is produced by the perspectives of many intersecting truths. This is why the laws of physics and the laws of the heart are not always the same. This is why the quantum and the chemistry do not understand each other, even though they are both true. Art is not compatible with the absolute truth, and yet it moves more lives than reality. The lie is nothing more than the distortion of the truth, just as the darkness is the distortion of the light. Lying comes in the Latin concept mentis tuiri, which means ability of the mind to create ideas beyond reality. In English, the term lie comes from the Indo-European logh, which means falsehood. We could say then that the human found in lying the ability to be creative. And when he called the sun the father of the sky and the moon the spirit of the mother, and when he called the biosphere Mother Nature and the interior of the volcanoes he called hell, he called the stars ancestors, and he created the stories that made them being who they are, created culture, art, beauty, all through the ability of the mind to devise, to generate false ideas of reality, romanticizing life to make sense of it. Tell me now, me, you make it difficult for me. From this point of view, I would say no. But what about the lies that have led us to destroy each other? I am. The same knife that the monkey has in his hand can kill you or perform an operation capable of saving your life. It all depends on how you use it. A coherent and free and educated mind learns to lie the right way through art, romance, poetry, and the beauty of making sense of things, of connecting them together. Me and the truth? I am. The truth from the Latin verum means exact, something that in English can be found in the terms veracity. In other words, it refers to the direct relationship between what one perceives inside and what is outside, a certain form of conformity between what I think and feel with what I observe of reality externally. That said, a truth becomes a total relative form from the point of view of which you look at it. We can say something as simple as, for the colorblind person, the pencil is not red, even though I can see it red. So what is truth? Well, many insects and animals don't see red either. The only thing that makes it red is my ability to see the 700 hertz of vibrational frequency wave of light. Or we could make it even more complex. Albert Einstein himself refused to believe that quantum physics could be real because he said God does not play dice. The ability to support an affirmation like the quantum one that goes against the world of physics does not enter into his concept of intelligence, and yet it exists. Me. Yes, but we could also say that it's absurd to think that the earth is flat when we already know from many tests that it's not. I am. The big problem with truths is that they seek to be absolute and to impose themselves on others. The person who sees the flat earth is the person who sees the flat world and is based on what his limited eyes perceive, and that is a truth like any other. People who say that the earth tends to be spherical can fall into two groups: those who blindly trust others without question, and those who have the ability to see for themselves why. In all cases, truth is a perception. Truths are never absolute. They are perceptions. And the more they want to impose their truths on others, the more they will be contributing to the collective lie, me. So you have to educate yourself better. I am. But not at school. Getting education is learning to savor and digest information about life and the world, not swallowing it like a duck. Me. I understand then that there is no absolute truth, that it transforms as I transform my way of perceiving the world around me, the inner world. At the same time, I understand that a lie is a tool of human creativity, a gift that culture, art, and beauty gave us, and that because we are not consistent, we have misused it. Lie and truth, then, are not opposite things, but complementary. Because while one arises from the perception of the external world, truth, the other projects as a perception on the said world, lie. I am. Be consistent, and wherever you go, you can project your lie to build truth. Well, it is the richness of the inner art of the human being, of the imagination, which has designed the wonderful realities that surround you today. Learn to use them. Design now your lies and your truths as a single being, intertwined with each other. Your imagination and your truth, your external and internal world, both united as one. Manifest it externally so that you can see the balanced result of what both represent in you, your creative power. Me. I am the mind that with imagination designs the new realities. The lie is the basis of my reality. The truth is the potential of my imagination.